Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Exponential Awareness. So, we have the picture of the 14-year-old who opened fire at Appalachian High School in Georgia, which, pardon the censoring here, deleted 4 people and injured 9 others. Some reports are saying 13-year-old. I believe the FBI itself is saying that. This infographic here says the rate of sexual offenses for male to female transformers is 600 times that of women. Very interesting data point there. 5 Russian GRU officers, 1 civilian charged for conspiracy to hack the Ukrainian government. Defendants are alleged to have committed cyber attacks in advance of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, also targeted 26 North Atlantic Treaty Organizations or NATO countries. In an indictment unsealed today, a grand jury in Maryland charged 6 computer hackers, all of whom were residents and nationals of Russian Federation, with conspiracy to commit computer intrusion and wire fraud conspiracy. 5 of the defendants were officers in Unit 29155 of the Russian Main Intelligence Directorate, or GRU, a military intelligence agency of the General Staff of the Armed Forces. The 6th individual was a civilian already under indictment for conspiracy to commit computer intrusion and is now also charged with wire fraud conspiracy. A former 2016 Trump campaign advisor is charged over his work for sanctioned Russian TV. So we see the same narrative rolling out right now, just ahead of the election season, while simultaneously we had accusations of Governor Hochul's prior attorney having Chinese affiliations. And so it seems the October surprises have turned into September surprises, and I would chalk this all up to campaigns targeting each other. It's very interesting that all this stuff is happening right now and was not brought to light months ago or years ago. The Justice Department has charged a Russian-born U.S. citizen and a former advisor to Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign with working for a sanctioned Russian state television network and laundering the proceeds. Indictments announced Thursday allege that Dmitry Simes and his wife received over $1 million in a personal car and driver in exchange for work they did for Russian Channel 1 since June of 2022. The network was sanctioned by the U.S. in 2022 over Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Simes, 76, and his wife Anastasia Simes have a home in Virginia and are believed to be Russian. The defendants allegedly violated sanctions that were put in place in response to Russia's illegal aggression in Ukraine, U.S. Attorney Matthew M. Graves said in a statement announcing the charges. Some violations harm our national security interests, a fact that Dmitry Simes, with the deep experience he gained in national affairs after fleeing the Soviet Union and becoming a U.S. citizen, should have uniquely appreciated. A statement from Tim Pool that has since been deleted. Let's see if I can zoom in here. This is on X. And from Tim Pool, starting the quote, "My statement regarding allegations in the leaked DOJ indictment. Should these allegations prove true, I, as well as other personalities and commentators, were deceived and are victims. I cannot speak for anyone else in the company as to what they do or to what they are instructed. The Culture War podcast was licensed by Tenet Media. It existed well before any license agreement with Tenet, and it will continue to exist after any such agreement expires. The only change with the agreement was that the location of the live broadcast was moved to Tenet's YouTube channel. Never at any point did anyone other than I have full editorial control of the show, and the contents of the show are often apolitical. Examples include discussing spirituality, dating, and video games. The show is produced in its entirety by our local team without input from anyone external to the company. TCW is a separate company not associated with timcast.com or the properties. It exists solely for the production of the Culture War podcast. That being said, we still do not know what is true, as these are only allegations. Putin is a scumbag. Russia sucks donkey balls. And to the journalists who wish to jump the gun, create their own narrative, or lie about what is currently going on, you can eat my Irish expletive," reads the post. Like I said, it has now been deleted. This is an interesting data point from the US. As solo dining reservations rise, restaurants are catering to parties of one. In the US, solo dining reservations have risen 29% over the last 2 years, as we see the fracturing between relationships between men and women. We see the symptoms of that occurring. A historian who accurately predicted 9 of the last 10 presidential elections makes his 2024 pick. Alan Lichtman, the historian who correctly predicted the outcome of 9 out of the 10 most recent presidential elections, has made his guess on who will reclaim the White House this year. Spoiler alert, it's Vice President Kamala Harris. Lichtman said in a video, first reported by the New York Times, that he based his prediction on 13 keys, or big picture true-false questions, that tap into the strength and performance of the White House party. Interesting data point there. This is an opinion piece from someone. It says, got news for y'all. No matter who wins in November, the last days of the U.S. empire are upon us, with Turkey, India, Russia, China, Brazil, Iran, and approaching 100 other countries lining up to embrace BRICS and ditch the dollar. 2025 will see the rapid global rejection of the dollar currency, ultimately ending in the financial collapse of the U.S. empire itself. Trump can't stop this, and Kamala doesn't want to stop it. My new interview with someone. I don't know if that name will get censored, so I don't want to say it. So interesting opinion there. I don't think the end of the U.S. dollar is anywhere near. I think that is a propaganda piece. If you understand the plumbing of the financial system and how things actually work, the U.S. dollar is not likely to collapse in 2025. New podcast. Were Tenet media influencers tricked into a deep state honeypot trap? So there's an interesting video here if you want to go look it up. This post reads, just another day in Mexico, where a politician is either killed or kidnapped. The mayor-elect of Chiapas municipality near the Guatemala border was kidnapped from a cafe in Tuxtla Gutierrez, Chiapas, on Tuesday, becoming the third politician from the mayor-elect's besieged municipality to disappear since last December. See a growing trend of that in Mexico. Here's an interesting data point. There's apparently a film coming out called Will and Harper, and the plot of the film is Will Ferrell and his close friend, former head writer at Saturday Night Live, Harper Steele, embark on a cross-country road trip together after Harper comes out as a transformer. This is an interesting comedy stand-up that reveals the truth of our society. So I'm going to go ahead and play this.
I'm afraid to argue with woke people because I look like this, and I don't know who's going to back me up. You know? Because listen, I'm on board with 95% of it. They're like, Black Lives Matter. I'm like, hell yeah. They're like, future is female, stop Asian hate. I'm like, absolutely. They're like, all white men are scum. And I'm like, hey there. That last part, that hurt my feelings when you said that. And honestly, it's a little hypocritical given that and then I feel a warm hand on my shoulder. And I turn around and there's just a skinhead smiling at me. He's like, I hear you, brother. No one has it harder than the white man. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. All right, I'm back. Listen, I don't want you to hate me for being white, but I don't want you to like me for being white. Why are these the only two options? Jesus. Okay, well, if I have to pick a side, I'm gonna go with you guys because at least your heart is in the right place. I'm just kidding. It's because you control all of film and television. That's why I'm over here. But when you find my old tweets, I'll be calling you. Yes, I will. Shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you can still comfortably tour the Midwest.
There you go. That's pretty, I think that's pretty accurate about our current scenario in the world. The Biden regime's decision to go after my parents is a sign of its profound weakness. They are losing in Ukraine, they are losing in Gaza, and they are losing the economic and technological race against China. Failure breeds desperation, which is why they are frantically, I guess, trying to resurrect the old scarecrow of Russian interference. And I think this is inaccurate. This is someone named Dmitry Simes from the earlier post where those two individuals in their 70s were being targeted. Ukraine does appear to be losing the war with Russia. However, I don't think Israel is losing in Gaza. They might be losing the culture war, but as far as kinetic energy, ground taken, and success on that front, I wouldn't say Israel is losing the war with Gaza. And I wouldn't say they're losing the economic and technological race against China either, because China's economy is absolutely imploding right now. And most of their technological abilities that they share with the public aren't actually true. They're oftentimes very fabricated or just skeletons of technology. This was a post that was circulating for quite some time, but I think there's been a rebuttal to it that shows it's still this terminology still exists in the post. So it shows a before picture of telegrams, frequently asked questions, and one of the questions is, "There's illegal content on Telegram. How do I take it down?" And the highlighted section that was there before says, "All Telegram chats and groups chats are private amongst their participants. We do not process any requests related to them." And it shows the after answer. It says, "All Telegram apps have report buttons that let you flag illegal content for our moderators." So this is interesting. But I think someone else showed that this answer has simply moved to a separate section, but it still exists. So stuff going viral that might not actually be true. Imagine that. Update. Here's something from Russia, from Ukrainian Commander-in-Chief Alexander Syrskyi. Russia had been planning to launch a new attack on Ukraine from the Kursk region before Kiev's surprise cross-border incursion. Over the last 6 days, the enemy hasn't advanced a single meter in the Pokrovsk, hopefully I said the right direction. Our strategy is working. And that's not a true statement either. They have been making substantial ground advancements on the Eastern Front in Ukraine, perhaps not specifically in the Pokrovsk region, but collectively across the Eastern Front. Things seem to have maintained the same pace, if not actually sped up. You add to the mix the accusations from Belarus that Ukraine attacked it, and that could present a number of other issues. In addition, the offensive into Kursk mobilized a lot of Russian military personnel that were not active, and so now they have brought to the front even more troops. And if Ukraine mobilizes, it will destroy its own economy at this point. The Wall Street Journal opinion piece says Ukraine, the underdog, takes a risk. The Wall Street Journal writes that Zelensky is going all in, realizing his existential loss in a military conflict, and now his goal is to provoke a nuclear conflict. Zelensky and General Syrskyi have adopted the high-risk strategy of invading the Kursk region, the territory of a nuclear superpower, because they believe that Ukraine is the underdog in an existential war, and it certainly is an existential war for both parties. Kiev seems now to believe that its Western partners won't give Ukraine an upper hand in a conventional war. The lame duck Biden administration is poorly positioned to affect events. Ukraine rejects its advice, and Russia holds it in contempt. The European Union is, as usual, divided and ineffective, and the West generally still labors under the illusion that Mr. Putin is willing to negotiate a peace that leaves Ukraine free to join NATO and the European Union. Underdogs have to take risks. Kiev hopes the offensive will raise Ukrainian morale, pressure Mr. Putin to shift his forces, and, in a best-case scenario, weaken support for the war in Russia. I notice it says war in Russia. Interesting. Pavel Durov, CEO of Telegram, is officially on the FBI's most wanted list as of yesterday, after a federal warrant was issued for obstruction of justice and money laundering. Arrest in France on August 24th, Durov had previously hinted at the FBI's push for a backdoor into Telegram when speaking to Tucker Carlson, a blatant attempt to spy on its users. Now, he's being targeted for resisting U.S. demands. Is this about justice or silencing a platform that defies Big Brother? France holds Durov, but will they comply with U.S. extradition demands? Welcome to the new age of freedom, where free speech is the real fugitive. And this happens every time at civilization turnovers. Here's a interesting commentary by Russell Brand, and I think it's a really good summary of the world we are living in currently. Let's go ahead and take a watch.
I suppose that if you have that kind of polarity, a kind of tension where crisis is beneficial to the most powerful interests in the world, it's likely that you will see a perpetuation of crisis, endless crisis. If the military-industrial complex benefit from war, you will have war. If the pharmaceutical complex benefit from ill health, you will have the perpetuation of ill health. If they require you to eat food that's bad for you and take medicine that's bad for you, then you find that this great, wonderful nation, in which I'm a foreigner, traipsing willy-nilly back and forth that border, almost at will, popping in them cages that Obama built. Then I suppose that what you have instead of this wonderful nation, you have a kind of conveyor belt where we're sort of turned into larvae with parasitic tubes attached to us, one end being pumped full of sugar and seed oil, the other end being pumped full of needless pharmaceuticals.
Not a bad summary at all. Fun fact, Canada has more Sikh and pro-Khalistani MPs than India does. Canada has 18 Sikh and pro-Khalistani MPs, while India has only 13, despite India's population being 1.4 billion people larger and its parliament having over 200 more seats, writes economist Chris Burnett on X. Britain's Crown Prosecution Service dismisses charges against Harvey Weinstein. Imagine that. A guy who has been unequivocally proven to have committed serious crimes. Charges dismissed. Rules for thee and rules for me. Germany plans to deport asylum claimants to Rwanda using facilities paid for under Rishi Sunak's proposed Rwanda scheme. Blaze TV host and TPUSA contributor Lauren Chen was fired by Blaze after being accused by the U.S. Justice Department to have knowingly taken $10 million from the Russian government to push pro-Russian propaganda. So you see this crackdown happening right now to build up the Russian propaganda narrative. Very, very interesting. Not a year ago, not 6 months ago, not 5 years ago, right now. Apparently, something called the Internet Archive has lost a major legal battle in a decision that could have a significant impact on the future of Internet history. Today, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit ruled against the long-running digital archive, upholding an earlier ruling in Hatchett v. Internet Archive that found that one of the Internet Archive's books digitization projects violated copyright laws. Notably, the appeals court's ruling rejects the Internet Archive's argument that its lending practices were shielded by the fair use doctrine, which permits for copyright infringement in certain circumstances, calling it unpersuasive. Here's a post from some channel on X called Autism Capital. It reads, "Enjoy these moments. Enjoy posting the memes with reckless abandon. Enjoy the privilege of calling out your political leaders. Enjoy the ability to call your buddies, I don't know if I'll get censored for saying that, online without fear of prison time. Enjoy all of these things because they may not last forever." Pointing to censorship and the crackdown of the First Amendment, freedom of speech. The father of the suspect in the Georgia school deleting has been arrested and charged with murder, involuntary manslaughter, and cruelty to children, the authorities say. The story here is that the father is alleged to have purchased the firearm that was used as a gift for his son. Schumer is in a video quoted saying, "The only way we're going to have a great future in America is by granting citizenship to millions of illegal aliens." Cheap labor is what they're after. Cheap labor and cheap votes. Blatant election interference. Judge lays out schedule in Trump's January 6th case as election nears. Prosecutors' opening brief to present their arguments is due September 26th per the court order. They said in court Thursday that the filing would contain new information not included in the indictment, per CBS News. The timing allows for the information to become public before the November election. Imagine that. Stuff from back in January 6th of 2021 is just now, at this specific time, being brought to the public. Imagine that. Trump's team must respond by October 17th and can submit a request to dismiss the indictment based on the immunity agreement. Prosecutors will then have until October 29th to respond. Imagine that, just a week or so before the election. Netanyahu humiliates White House. "There's no Gaza deal in the making. It's not close," he says. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Thursday issued a bombshell of a statement which constitutes a glaring contradiction of the White House narrative on how things are going with Hamas negotiations towards a ceasefire deal. "There's no deal, not a deal in the making," he told Fox News. "Unfortunately, it's not close." He said this during a Fox Morning News live interview segment. The remarks are the firmest and most unequivocal Netanyahu has ever been regarding what a clear, failed, and perhaps even dead international efforts to achieve a truce in Gaza. For days and weeks now, a series of White House statements have claimed the Biden administration is spearheading efforts to achieve a peace deal and hostage swap, and Blinken and Kirby have used a variety of metaphors, including being at the goal line, while repeatedly claiming there's been a comprehensive deal on the table that's quote-unquote close. In a video from Kamala Harris, she vows to use the Department of Justice to hold social media platforms responsible for hate and misinformation. The Democrat Party openly declares war on the First Amendment, the foundational principle of America's constitutional republic. And so this sounds very akin to the quote-unquote war on terror, which provided a war front and a war ideology that allowed for open, endless wars, and for the war to be defined however you define something that's terror. Very similar use case there. Apparently, the Department of Justice Chief of Public Affairs admitted that Trump indictments are a politically motivated perversion of justice. Reveals lawfare involved in making former president a convicted felon backfired on Democrats. Claims his former colleague Alvin Bragg's case is nonsense and alleges he was stacking charges. He, Alvin Bragg, was just stacking charges and rearranging things just to make it fit a case. I think the case is nonsense. It's a perversion of justice. It's a travesty of justice. It's a mockery of justice. The whole thing is disgusting. That's why he's, Trump, surging in the polls. Several quotes from the video. You can go check that out online if you want to. About a 14 minute video. Kash Patel torches the FBI for doing nothing to stop the Georgia shooter despite having him on their radar. 4 people are dead, students and teachers, beloved football coaches, and this guy, the shooter, was on the FBI radar for a year. Maybe, just maybe, if the FBI focused on ruling up terrorists at the border and protecting communities from known shooters instead of focusing on DEI, white rage, and knock it off, we might actually have some protective results in our communities. Also, from New York, feds just raided the New York Police Department commissioner's home. And notice they use the word raided here rather than executed a warrant or a search warrant. These words are very sensationalized for a reason, depending on what the narrative is. Some people get raided, and some people have search warrants executed on them. And I found this interesting, and I'm curious why Dr. Phil, of all people, is the one speaking on this topic, but nonetheless he is. It's a video here showing Dr. Phil shares updated numbers on military-aged Chinese nationals coming into America, which is a story that hasn't been too mainstream at this point. In this administration, in the last 3.5 years, almost 50,000, roughly 49,000 Chinese nationals have come to America. In the 10 years between 2010 and 2020, they tell me it was close to 1,000 to 1,200, so it's gone up to 50,000 during this administration. A significant portion of them military-aged men. I'm told by the border agents that a lot of them have military haircuts. They've got new boots. They're in shape. They look like they're coming here with training. I've seen them at the border. When these groups are coming in, you see them well. You know, my training. Anybody could see them. They're like either been institutionalized in a prison or you're a soldier. And here's another piece here that points to gang activity from migrants in the U.S. It says, it's spreading. America's top oil field terrorized by armed Venezuelan gangs. It's only going to get worse from here as the Biden-Harris administration disastrous open border policies have now come to a neighborhood near you, for some of you. In the past week, we saw an armed Venezuelan prison gang, Tren de Aragua members, terrorize the northern Denver suburb of Aurora and other sanctuary cities run by far-left Democrats. New concerns on Thursday afternoon indicate critical infrastructure is now under the threat from migrant cartel members. According to Libs of TikTok, a Texas-based oil gas company issued a memo to employees informing them that police and the FBI have warned armed Cuban and Venezuelan migrant gangs are committing thefts in the Permian Basin, America's highest producing oil field. And there's a memo there if you want to go read it. You can also look it up online. U.S. employers announced 75,891 job cuts in August, with the exception of 2020, which had 115,762 cuts. That August was the highest total since 2009, when 76,456 layoffs were being recorded. 2009 was when a year into the recession, haven't really taken off, but don't fear, we are not in a recession right now, and certainly not a depression. Do not fear. Here's a post from Donald Trump Jr. on X. It says Tim Walz actually signed into law a 95% tax on Zyn and attempted to raise taxes even higher on vaporizers that adults use to help quit smoking cigarettes. He did this while at the same time pushing for free taxpayer-funded needles for heroin addicts. Contradictions abound, the title of my video yesterday. YouTube is set to limit teens' exposure to videos about fitness and weight loss across global markets. You wouldn't want teens to be healthy and in shape. No, no, no. What did Russell Brand say about that? Apparently, the U.S. calls on big tech to help evade online censorship in Russia and Iran. But yet, cracking down on it here at home, censoring even more. Contradictions abound. Questions regarding Moscow's funding of U.S. podcasters. Is Tenet Media an FBI honeypot to dupe both them and other podcasters? Will the DOJ pursue Chinese and Israeli media influencers in America? Interesting questions from Rick Wills. In other news related to that, the YouTube channel for Tenet Media, as well as 4 other channels belonging to its founder, Lauren Chen, which added up to well over 1 million subscribers, have been terminated by YouTube following yesterday's indictment by the U.S. Justice Department, which alleges that both Lauren and her husband knowingly accepted over $10 million in funding from foreign agents linked to the Russian government while pushing media personalities on Tenet, including Dave Rubin, Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, into producing pro-Russian content. Contradictions abound. In the UK, The Labour Party launches a bid to get rid of hereditary peers, abolishing the 92 seats reserved for hereditary peers who inherit their titles through their families was one of Labour's general election promises. The aim is to finish reforms introduced by the last Labour government, which in 1999 revoked the 700-year-old right of all hereditary peers to sit in the Lords, leaving just 92 as a compromise with the Conservatives. One of the 92, a former leader of the Lords, Tory Lord Strathclyde, condemned the move as a high-handed, shoddy political act. Sir Keir Starmer is in favor of abolishing the House of Lords and replacing it with an elected assembly of the nations and regions, but that will not happen before the next election. From the UK as well, the number of migrants who've broken into the UK has now surpassed 21,000 for 2024. That's less than a month of migrants that we have in the US. This person is visiting Romania on the screen and discovering that it is quite a beautiful and well-kept place and has low crime and people leave their stuff out and it doesn't get stolen, and then compares that to the experience in the United States. In Denver, a law firm tasked with investigating alleged gang takeover of a Aurora apartment building reports that the Venezuelan Tren de Aragua, or TDA gang, began its takeover in late 2023. Since then, the gang has carried out violent assaults, death threats, extortion, intimidation, child prostitution, tightening its grip on the Aurora apartment complex. Yet, what is our government doing and what is it showing it's concerned about? Hunter pleads guilty, faces 17 years. Will President save him? He didn't actually plead guilty. He pled guilty without pleading guilty. I forget what the legal term is, but it's a way of pleading guilty because the evidence is so damning that you basically have to plead guilty. But in essence, he's not pleading guilty. And so I think what's likely going to happen here, if you ask me, is that he will be pardoned, and it will point to that, and there'll be a narrative built that he's not actually guilty, but he simply pled guilty because of the evidence being so damning. But that's just my opinion. YouTube takes down quote-unquote right-wing channels linked to DOJ Russian indictments. From Elon Musk, says we need to secure the border. Unless Trump wins, meet your new building managers. And it is a shared post from the TDA Venezuelan gang that took over that apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado. France uses arcane cyber law to charge Pavel Durov. It forces any company offering cryptology tools to notify France's ANSSI cybersecurity agency and keep a description of the technical characteristics of the cryptology tool, as well as the source code, so that they can defeat it and overcome it and create a backdoor. That's the only reason you would need those items. This is a chart here that shows the change in employment by origin, August 2024. And it shows foreign-born workers gaining several 100,000 jobs and native-born workers losing nearly 1.5 million jobs. So if you add up the delta between those two, you end up at about a 2 million difference. Foreign-born workers gaining 635, native-born workers losing 1.325 million. Apparently, the U.S. is blaming China for a highly evolved polio strain, suspected of leaking from a Chinese lab. A study revealed by researchers at France's Pasteur Institute suggests that a highly evolved polio strain, which infected a boy in China's Anhui province, closely matches the variant stored at Wuhan Institute of Virology. The strain, WIV14, is 99% similar to the Socket A strain used in a vaccine production and lab settings. This similarity has led some experts to question whether the strain might have leaked from WIV lab. The study points to two possibilities for the origins of WIV-14. The strain could have emerged from a natural reservoir or a lab. According to Dr. Maël Bissaud, who led the research, it is also possible that WIV-14 originated at the WIV itself or from a facility handling polio. So, remember when the Chinese lab leak theory was supposedly conspiracy theory? And here, following up on the Venezuelan gang activity at the Permian Basin, a Texas-based oil company issued a memo to employees warning them about security concerns from violent migrant gangs. The gangs are allegedly attacking oil workers and attempting to steal oil, fuel, and copper from the oil fields. And here we have a video of a Jordanian 9K-35 Strela-10 air defense missile system in desert camouflage has been spotted in service with the Ukrainian armed forces. So we have Jordanian-based weapon systems ending up in Ukraine. The air defense system was modernized on the territory of Ukraine by installing a modern electro-optical sight, codenamed Wally, from the Odessa company, KB Teknari, which allows the outdated Strela to fight drones much more effectively. Judging by the video, the Jordanian Strela-10 is firing Jordanian 9M 37M anti-aircraft missiles. Apparently, 2 Virginia guardsmen are running a rural anti-government militia. 2 Virginians run a local county-approved militia, one that has made overt threats against the government. They also both happen to be top-performing non-commissioned officers in the Virginia Army National Guard, serving the very government one of them has repeatedly warned is drifting towards tyranny. It's a seemingly contradictory set of roles that likely runs afoul of new Army rules that explicitly prohibit anti-government behavior for soldiers both on active duty and in the Guard. Staff Sergeants Daniel Abbott and Alexandra Griffith jointly run the Campbell County Militia, which operates in the rural surroundings of Lynchburg, Virginia, with Abbott serving as the militia commander and having ties to other similar groups in the region. The militia, which appears to be mostly white-based on photos posted to its public-facing social media, was formerly roughly 5 years ago. It's a weird sentence. Following a rise in other similar groups in Virginia after a Democratic wave of victories in the state in gun control fights. In 2020, Campbell's Board of Supervisors officially recognized Abbott's militia in a 6-1 vote to serve as a barrier against a tyrannical government. Kamala Harris more than doubles Trump's $130 million fundraising haul in August. Vice President Kamala Harris more than doubled former President Trump's just announced $130 million fundraising haul for August, pulling in over $300 million in that time. On the heels of the Democratic National Convention, Harris for President announced that her team has taken in more than $500 million since she took over President Joe Biden's campaign in July, just about 1 month period. And on Thursday, campaign sources leaked to NBC News that the Harris fundraising arms pull in more than $300 million in August alone. The sources did not specify the exact fundraising haul, but the more than $300 million figure, which includes the campaign and related entities, signals that the breakneck pace of fundraising has not slowed since money began gushing in upon President Joe Biden's July 21st announcement that he would step aside from seeking a Democratic nomination. And so if you follow the money, large amounts of money like this are not coming from individuals. It's coming from large donors. That is where these campaigns get their money from. And so that tells you right there are many large companies contributing money towards the campaign. To what end? What do they see? What has been promised? Show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. Chuck Schumer in a similar video from earlier says our goal is citizenship for all 11 million undocumented migrants. And I think it's probably a lot higher than 11 million. We're probably closer to 30 million at this point. From Tim Pool on the matters of being alleged to have participated in Russian disinformation. I have been contacted by the FBI as a potential victim of a crime. The FBI believes I have information relevant to an ongoing criminal investigation and have requested a voluntary interview. I will be offering my assistance in this matter. In the last post here, Judge Juan Merchan has ruled that Trump's sentencing in his hush money trial, for which he was convicted, will be delayed until November 26, 2024, after the election. Interesting move there. Very interesting move indeed. That may signal several different things. I'll let you ponder on that. If you have any comments, if you'd like to see anything, any suggestions for improvements, ideas, conversation pieces, please put them in the comments. Also, please share, like, and subscribe. All the usual stuff. Until next time, stay exponentially aware.